Could everyone please start your videos? That's how we will establish a quorum. So could everyone please turn on your video function? Thank you. And again, we need to turn on our videos, please. Courtney, by my recollection, it is now 8:32. Do we have a quorum?
We need 2 more council members.
Thank you. And again, I want to remind everyone, please start your video because that's how we establish a quorum for our digital meetings. Everyone's video needs to be on. If you're a council member, please turn on your video at this time so we can see you.
Ms. Bazil, are you there? We now have a quorum.
Thank you, Courtney. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the quarterly meeting, the October quarterly meeting of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council. I now call the meeting to order. I'm your chair, Randall Brown. And at this time, I would like to ask for, well, before we begin, I'd like to introduce our parliamentarian who's joining us for our first quarterly council meeting today, Ms. Nicole Learson. She'll be assisting me today and us today in keeping Robert's Rules of Order and trying to help us conduct our business as professionally as possible today. So Ms. Learson, you now have the floor.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you all for having me. I do appreciate it. As Mr. Chair said, I'm a professional registered parliamentarian, which means I've been tested and certified in all matters of parliamentary procedure. My area of expertise is Robert's Rules of Order, although I am familiar with other parliamentary authorities. So I look forward to working with the council and hoping that you find value in it and that I help you achieve the goals that you've set for yourself towards holding an efficient and an effective meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Learson will be conducting a training with the executive committee fairly soon. She was just recently hired by us, so there wasn't time to schedule that before this meeting, but she will be conducting a training session with your executive committee. And then at our council retreat next year, she will be able to give a training to all of us, the entire council as well. I think that would be helpful for everyone. And so I just want to let everyone know that. And thank you, Ms. Learson. Now, I'd like to do introductions. And as I said, I'm your council chair, Randall Brown. This gets a little difficult with our digital format, but I'd like for each council member to introduce yourself. So I'd like to start with the executive committee. So if our vice chair is present, could you please begin?
Good morning. I'm Hyacinth Mickey. I'm the Vice Chairperson of the Louisiana Development of Disabilities Council.
Thank you. And Mike, are you present?
I am. My name is Michael Billings. I am the chair of the Self-Determination Community Inclusion Committee and a parent as well. Thank you.
Okay. Mary?
I'm here.
Good morning. Stephen? Stephen, are you present? Okay, I guess not. Okay. So I'd like for each of us to introduce, so I suppose we'll go by region. Do we have anyone from region 1 present?
Randall, I'm here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill. Welcome back to the council.
You're welcome. Thanks.
And could you please state your name for everyone? Your
Yeah,
full name?
my name is Jill Aaron England.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anyone from region 10?
In.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch
It's
that. Okay, good morning, Rosalind.
Good morning. I just finally got in because
Hey,
I
Ros.
was pretty much scared I was not going to get in.
Welcome, good morning.
Good morning.
Could you let everyone know your name?
Hi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Rosalind Heimel. I am from Region 10 Self-Advocacy Person. And I'm also on LAKN as
Okay,
well.
thank you. Thank you,
You're
good
welcome.
morning. Do we have anyone from region 2?
I'm here from region 10.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jill, I didn't give you a chance to speak there. Good morning. Could you tell everyone your name?
Morning. I'm Jillian, a self-advocate, and I'm from region 10.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anyone else from regions 1 or 10 this morning? Do I have anyone from region 2? Any committee members, any council members from region 2 this morning? Mike? Okay. Do I have any council members from region 3?
Randall, hi, it's Kim Bazile, and I'm a parent advocate, and we live in Region 3.
Good morning, Kim, thank you. Do I have any council members from region 4?
Hi, I'm Lillian Dejean, a self-advocate from Region 4.
Good morning, Lillian, thank you.
And I'm Carmen Setnar from Lafayette in Region 4. I'm a parent representative.
Thank you, Carmen, good morning. Do I have anyone from region 5? Again, region 5.
Good morning. My name is Tamisha Sonia. I'm a parent advocate from Region 5.
Good morning, Ms. Sonia. Glad you could join us this morning. Do I have anyone from region 6? Region 6. I know Mary on our executive committee is from Region 6. Do I have anyone else? Okay. And Region 7, yours truly is from Region 7, and we have a new member from there as well. So, Mr. Bristow, would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Good morning. My name is Rashard Bristow. I'm a parent self-advocate from Region 7.
Thank you, sir, and welcome to the council. Good morning. Do I have any members from Region 8? Region 8. Okay. And we've already done 9 and 10. So that's all our regional members. What about our department representatives?
Good morning, everybody. This is Julie Foster Hagan, Assistant Secretary with Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities.
Good morning, Julie. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. This is Melissa Baham. I'm the Director of Louisiana Rehabilitation Services at the Louisiana Workforce Commission, Office of Workforce Development.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jen Katzman. I'm Medicaid Deputy Director. Good morning.
Good morning, Jen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Gilroy. I'm with the Governor's Office of Elderly Affairs. I am the Elder Rights and Compliance and Planning Manager.
Good morning, Michelle. Thank you.
Morning.
This is Robin Wagner, and I'm not sure I'm an official member of the council yet, but I am the Deputy Assistant Secretary with the Office of Aging and Adult Services.
Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Laura Thornton, and I'm proxying in for Dr. Patty Baravecchio from the Bureau of Family Health, Office of Public Health.
Welcome and good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Fernando Lopez. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Aging and Adult Services, and I work with Robin Wagner. Glad to be here.
Good morning, Dr. Lopez. We're glad to have you.
Excuse me, Randall.
Yes, Rosalind.
When I couldn't hear the doctor very good, I don't know what happened with his camera and that. It sounded a little scratchy.
Okay, thank you.
So can he kind of say?
You just let him know. So we'll make sure that he has time to adjust his mic there. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do we have any other agency representatives that haven't spoken yet?
I see that Ms. Palazzola is trying to speak, but I'm not sure what's happening with the mic.
Okay. She says she's going to have to log back in. And again, that's Bambi Palazzola with the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs. She's the director.
This is Philip Wilson, Phil, and I'm with the Human Development Center. I'm the director of the Human Development Center and a professor at LSU Health Science Center.
Thank you, Dr. Phil, and good morning, sir. Do I have any other agency representatives present who haven't spoken yet?
Hey, this is Bambi. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Good morning, Bambi.
All right, sorry about that. I'm Bambi Palazzola. I'm with the Governor's Office of Disability Affairs.
Good morning. Welcome. Are there any other agency representatives present that haven't spoken this morning? Okay, I think that concludes our introductions. I do want to go over the ground rules for today and our mission statement. So Courtney, if you could put those up for us first, the ground rules, please. Okay. And the rules for today's meeting are as follows, and they're actually for all of our meetings, but this is the rules we will follow for today's meeting. Members must be recognized by the chair before speaking. Please be respectful of each other's opinions. We will break for 10 minutes every 1.5 hours. Please discuss council business in a responsible manner. Except as necessary today, please restrict the use of electronic communication, such as texting, during the council meeting. And that stands for committee meetings as well. Please silence or turn off your cell phones. The mission statement is posted at every meeting. And please be on time for meetings. No alphabets. That means like acronyms that we like to use for projects and departments and such
Excuse
things.
me,
People may not know what those are. And so if we can, please try to
Randall?
remember to state what they are. And please keep side conversations to a minimum, done quietly and restricted to the subject at hand. All right, the mission statement is as follows. To increase independence, self-determination, productivity, integration, and inclusion for Louisianans with developmental disabilities by engaging in advocacy, capacity building, and systems change. Okay, and now we have, I'd like to ask for, before I begin with the summary, I'd like to let everyone know that one of the things we'll be doing today that's a little bit different is every speaker will have 3 minutes on a topic. Also, if you speak on any issue or topic, we have to keep that limited to 2 times. So if you've spoken on a topic or if someone has already spoken on a topic, please be aware of that, but we'll allow you to speak twice on any topic or issue today. And every speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. And that's an effort to keep us on schedule today and recommended by our parliamentarian. So having said that, I'm going to ask that the July meeting summary, which you all were sent with your packets, I'm going to ask if there are any corrections. Okay, and then we have also, before I move to that, I'm sorry, I forgot about our conflicts of interest that must be identified. And so no member of the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council may cast a vote on any matter that would provide direct financial benefit to the member or otherwise give the appearance of a conflict of interest. So I just want to remind everyone, if you have some appearance of financial benefit or gain or something of that nature, that to abstain when voting, please, today. All right, and so now for the July meeting summary, which is again in your packets, I would like to ask, are there any corrections to that summary? Any corrections to the summary that are again in your packets for the July meeting? Hearing none, I would like to move that this passes by unanimous consent. And so the July meeting summary will stand as has been distributed. Okay, and next is my report to you, which okay. My screen is not showing what I need it to show. Let's see here. Courtney, I'm not showing the full screen here. I'm showing someone's camera view.
My current screen shows all of the council members' video feeds. I don't know what else is supposed to be seen right at this moment.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I got a text from you about that. I guess that was just a reminder I forgot to clear. Okay, thank you. That's the same thing. I apologize. Okay, so next is my chairperson's report to you. And that is fairly brief, but I did make several appointments to committees, and your Partners in Policy Ad Hoc Committee, Mr. Mike Billings has been appointed as the chair of that committee. Mr. Rashad Bristow has accepted appointment to that committee. Ms. Karonda Corley has accepted appointment to that committee. Ms. Nicole Flores has accepted appointment to that committee. Liz Gary, Selena Gillian, I hope I pronounced that correctly, has accepted appointment. Ms. Jill Hano and Mr. Stephen Nguyen have all accepted appointment to that committee, and also Ms. Bambi Polizzola. Okay, the governor has appointed 3 new members to the council. And since all meetings are currently being conducted virtually, the new members are being afforded the opportunity for this council set of meetings to attend the meetings before being appointed to serve on particular standing committees. And Jill Eagley has already let me know which one she would like to serve on, and she will be serving on the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee. And for Rashad and Ms. Banks, y'all can let me know today before the council meeting ends which ones you would prefer, or if you'd like to wait and make the determination sometime between now and the next council meeting. You can let me know which ones you prefer, and I will appoint you formally to that committee. And again, we're talking about the Self-Determination and Community Inclusion Committee, and we also have the Education and Employment Committee. And Mary Lee, did you have something to say?
Hey, Randall. I just wanted to share that I had a different list of appointments to the PIP Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay.
Stephen did not accept, so I did not have.
Okay. I'm sorry. This is what I was sent. I didn't realize you had a different one. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay. Do you want me to read it or?
Yes, I do. So the ones that Mary Lee's about to read is the updated list of those that accepted.
Okay, so I have Mike Billings as the chair, Rashad Bristow, Jill Hano, and Bambi Polizzola. And for non-council members, I have Ms. Karonda Corley, Nicole Flores, Selena Gilliland, and Liz Gary.
Thank you. Thank you. So those are the members of the Partners in Policymaking Ad Hoc Committee. All right, and next, you can see the meetings that I attended there for the quarter. There are 8 listed. There were a couple others that I had that had to do with the investigations, as well as the search committee process, but I didn't remember the dates on those, but I think there were at least 3 others that pertain to those topics that I was part of during the previous quarter. So that lets you know the dates and times of my meetings attended this quarter. And that is the conclusion of my report to you this morning. Okay, Courtney is letting me know that if we have any volunteers to switch committees, we'll entertain that because the size of committees is disproportionate. So we need to ask for some volunteers to possibly switch committees. Okay. So I don't have any volunteers for switching committees. Okay, Mitch volunteers to switch. Do you have any other volunteers to switch committees?
Carmen has her hand raised.
Yes, Carmen. Are you volunteering? Carmen, are you volunteering or would you like to speak?
I believe she's volunteering.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Do I have any other volunteers to switch committees? Okay. That's all I have in terms of report, Courtney. So I believe our next agenda item is your report. Am I right?
Courtney, you're on mute. It looks like you're trying to talk, but we don't hear you.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you for that. I'm sorry. Good morning, everyone. If you've all received your packets or if you're able to access our website online, the Executive Director's Report has been posted. As most of you are aware, we did receive a letter from the Administration for Community Living, and that was in relation to the composition of the Executive Director Search Committee. And that was rectified, and ACL has acknowledged that as so. We will be conducting an orientation in January, especially for our newest members. And as mentioned earlier, we will incorporate some parliamentarian training with that orientation as well and encourage all of the council members to attend that in addition with staff as well. So because of COVID-19, the National Association for Councils on Developmental Disabilities did not do their typical in-person conference in July. Instead, the Office on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities ended up hosting a series of webinars over 3 Wednesdays in July. And I was able to attend the majority of those because we did actually have a council meeting in July, which kind of coincided with that. As of late, the Developmental Disabilities Network has been collaborating to develop some data and request information from the Louisiana Department of Health regarding the mortality rate of individuals in intermediate care facilities and the mortality rate due to COVID, and to get information so that we can let the public know what's going on and what's being done to address this. And there was supposed to be a meeting with Assistant Secretary Mark Thomas, but that had to be moved due to the current legislative session. As I'm sure a lot of you state agencies are aware that there are certain meetings that just have to be moved. But once some resolution or more information has come to light regarding that issue, we will share that. The DD Network will share that. And then as you can see, there are a plethora of meetings that I had to attend between July and September. This actually does not include all of them. This was the ones that I would be able to actually give some information on. I want to thank Ms. Bambi Polizzola and Ms. Michelle Guillory for inviting me to attend the MDAC meetings. That has been a wealth of knowledge of resources and very insightful to understand how our state is responding to not only to COVID, but during the Hurricanes Laura and Hurricane Delta. So thank you ladies both for that. And that is the end of the Executive Director's report.
Okay, thank you. Can we, I know we have a brief budget report. So before I move to the Executive Committee recommendations and the Council legislative, the Council's 2021 legislative agenda for votes, can we go ahead and give our budget report?
Sure. And actually I would like to share my screen with that. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
Is it visible? Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
I'm gonna try to increase it if I can. There we go. So I appreciate the Executive Committee and the Council's patience and understanding. The world of fiscal and budget is relatively new for me. So I'm still learning the ins and outs of how to develop the budget reports, especially trying to figure out how they were compiled previously and being able to understand them so that I can explain any issues that may arise. But this is the current budget report for the end of September, which is the first quarter of the state fiscal year. I'm also in the process of compiling the actual end of the year budget report and will issue that as soon as it can be compiled. I've been collaborating with LDH Budget and Fiscal, trying to understand and create that report for you.
And I want to commend you, Courtney. I mean, it's been, I know, a difficult challenge to take on the role of interim executive director. And you've done remarkably well. I've enjoyed working with you in your process of getting all of your duties in place, and I thank you. I do have a question with regard to rent. It's not a financial question, but it's about the contract for the office. We will be moving soon, correct? The office will be moving.
Correct. We have things in place. The rent or the lease agreement has been approved by LDH and Division of Administration, but the owners of the building have not yet contacted me to let me know that the lease has been approved by them as well. But we will be hopefully we'll be moving to 5615 Corporate Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Our contract or our current lease or our current location ends November 30th. So we will have to vacate those premises by the end of November.
Okay.
And also I would like to thank all of the staff. Everything that is produced for you guys is not solely done by me. It is absolutely all hands on deck. And I would like to commend the rest of the staff as well.
Absolutely. You've all done a phenomenal job in stepping up in this time and this entire year. You have all had to do enormous changes and challenges with your work. And I thank you all the staff. We couldn't do this without you. Are there any questions about the budget?
You have a question from a member of the public whenever you're ready.
Yes, Hannah, you can read it, please.
Okay, from Mr. Charlie Michelle. He said, can you explain why 62% of operating expenses have been expended in the first quarter? Also, with the 2 highest paid positions not having been filled, it seems that less than 22% of salary allocations should have been expended. Not a concern, just want to understand.
Thank you, Charlie. Courtney, do we have information regarding his question on that?
I was actually going to ask if I could address that. Yes, sir.
Yes.
So the 62% of operating expenses, I think that actually may have been some purchases that were made for assistive technology for council members and for staff that should have been actually included in the acquisitions, especially since it says for furniture and computers. So that 62% might not be reflective of like overhead expenses. It also included, I believe, some, like I said, some purchases that were made to accommodate council members and for staff. You know, with working remotely, we're working from laptops, and instead of replacing laptops, we're either buying the lithium batteries so that they can remain in business. And then also we had staff who didn't have laptops. So we had to purchase laptops so that they could continue to work, continue to operate.
Okay. Any other budgetary questions? Questions about the budget?
I have a question.
Yes, Jim. You have the floor.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
Okay, if the current landlord approves a new lease, are y'all gonna stay where y'all are, or is this move definitely on?
LDH has already notified our current leaseor to let them know that we will be vacating by the end of November.
Okay.
And also, I don't know if, for those of you who have not been to our current location, it is unfortunately less than desirable.
You cannot park.
Correct. That is one issue. I don't think we'll have that issue at the new location. There's a completely open parking lot towards the back of the building.
Fancy, Courtney.
You're welcome, Ms. Hano.
Okay. Are there any other questions about the budget?
Rosalind has her hand raised.
Yes, Rosalind, you have the floor.
Yes. Mine is, are these numbers, will it ever change? How can we have the training up on it? Is this going to be like a training thing?
Well, we can certainly talk about that. We can add that to the retreat schedule for January, where we can talk a little more about how the budget, how we get these numbers, and how we arrive at these figures, and how we carry out the budget. So we can certainly provide some training on that.
I don't have the sheet with me up on it to see, you know, through the years in that.
Okay.
Where, you know, where all these digits are coming from. is these numbers coming in from like different years? Or
No,
different months?
this is for this quarter of 2020, so it's 3 months. It starts in September. And so this would be for the quarter. There are some budget projections for the fiscal year 2021 and our quarterly expenses. So it does show some year to date, meaning from the beginning of the year to now expenses, which aren't very many because it just began. So
Why I'm asking that though, Randall, is because I know we're gonna be doing what 5-year plan.
that's a different question.
So I know that's
We'll
in
get to
play.
that later.
Yeah, so that's in play, but are we still going to have to deal with the same numbers in the 5-year plan?
It's a different issue. The 5-year plan is a different issue. For the budget, this
Yeah,
is
I
the
mean,
budget.
the budget
This is the
one.
budget we're working with. So when we get to the 5-year plan, we'll talk about that more. Okay.
Because I'm trying to see where these numbers are for 2020 and 2021.
Okay. We will definitely add some training to our January retreat for that.
Because I want to follow up on that as well.
Sure. And you can always call me too if you have questions at any point in time, and I can talk with you about it. Okay.
I want to see that on paper where I would feel comfortable.
Okay. Okay. I'll talk with you later and we'll talk about it. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
Are there any other questions with regard to the budget?
Randall, I have a quick question. It'll
Yes.
take me less than 2 seconds.
Yes, Joe, you have the floor.
So, okay, this 5-year budget, is this because of the special session that's ending next Tuesday or Wednesday, or just the
There's not a
state's?
5-year budget. Rosalind was talking about the 5-year plan. That's a separate issue we'll be addressing later today. This budget is for the quarter, and it has some fiscal year numbers for the year on it as well. So this is for the year. This is our operating budget. This is how shows how we pay our expenses.
Oh, okay. So this is like paying the DD State Council's expenses, like whenever we, like for the, like meet in person and all of that.
Yes, yes. And our staffing and all of those sorts of things.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what this is right now.
Okay.
You have 2 questions from the public from Ms. Karonda Corley.
Can you read those, please, Hannah?
Yes, she says, was there no available and accessible options in the downtown area? And she also said, has all of the council members been provided technology?
Courtney, could you speak to that, please?
Absolutely. So we did request several bids, and there were quite a few places that we attempted to look at and place a bid on, or to propose a lease downtown. Unfortunately, the Department of Health did not approve, so we expand our search because of the cost of those facilities downtown. And as far as, I'm sorry, what was the second part of that request? Or
Have all of the council members been provided technology?
That option has been made, or has been offered to council members, and there has been a council member to request and receive technology to help them attend and participate in meetings. And if council members do have a request, please contact me, email me.
Right. Because we do have a form, so if any council member needs assistive technology to participate, then what will happen is Courtney will fill out a form and then present it to me, and I will sign it authorizing the expenditure, and then that person will be sent the technology they need for participation. So far, one council member has requested that and received it. Are there any other questions with regard to the budget? Okay. I want to remind everyone to, if you're not speaking, if you don't have the floor, to please mute your mics so that we limit background noise. There are a lot of us on the meeting today, and so it can create a lot of feedback and background noise. So if you're not speaking, please mute your mics. And so I want to go now to our executive committee recommendations. Courtney, do we have those to put up on the screen? Okay, and this is the recommendation that the executive committee was given from the CAN leaders and families directors. These were their recommendations to us for the 2021 legislative agenda. They had 3 items that they felt were crucial, priority for the next session. And so the executive committee, by majority vote, present these for your consideration today. Do you have any discussion? Do I have any discussions for the recommendation? Any discussion?
Ms. Kim Bazile has her hand raised, and I believe Ms. Liz Gary has a comment.
Yes, Kim, you have the floor.
I just want to say that I'm abstaining from this discussion and the vote.
Okay, so noted. Discussion among the council. Lillian wishes to abstain as well.
This is Robin Wagner. If I may ask a question, I'm just curious about whether the funding for direct support workers wage increase is across both programs of OCDD and programs of OAAS.
Courtney, do we have information on that? What we saw was what you see, and so I believe it would be yes. But do we have more information about that, to be clear?
That would need to be determined. We would have to do some research, and it would need to be a part of our ask. But in regards to that issue, it would be multiple millions of dollars.
Right. And Bambi is saying it should be across programs, and we agree it would have to be across programs. But I just wanted to clarify what, what if anything, because these were their top 3 recommendations. So there was a large list of things they chose from. So I wanted to be clear that we had all the information presented. All right, Liz, you have the floor. If no council member has a question or comment.
I have a comment.
Stephen, let's do Stephen first.
I think it's good to note that in executive committee meetings, we had a lot of discussion about this because with the uncertainty with the coronavirus and the funding, there was it was it was felt like a lot of these were big ask money wise. So being that it was some felt like it was very difficult to accomplish all these, especially with big dollar signs tied to it. And yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
I'm actually glad you brought that up as well, because there was a discussion. In fact, there was another motion to the effect that we would not adopt extra ask of any kind financially because of the concern that the state will have a budget shortfall. The only question is how large of a shortfall due to COVID, the effects of COVID. And of course, we've had 2 natural disaster hurricane events hit our state as well. And so we know that there will be a budget shortfall. The only question before us is how large. And so the concern the committee had, and the concern I still have, is that if we have an agenda that is full of large ask for funding, that it simply won't be taken seriously in the environment we're currently in as a state with regard to our budget. Because honestly, as your chair, I have to tell you, I'm confident that we will have to fight for services. We will, in the next legislative session next year, have to fight to keep the things we've already got in place. That's how bad the budget situation is projected to be. I haven't heard any concrete numbers, but I've been told by several people that would have knowledge that it's going to be a large shortfall, and we just aren't yet sure how large. But in light of that, and knowing the effects COVID is having on our economy and on our state, I feel like we should focus our energy on protection of services that we already have. The whole of the home and community-based service system will, I believe, have to be defended, unfortunately, because of how the state budget is designed due to the Constitution. So I do believe and wholeheartedly that we will have to defend our programs for funding. We will have to ask for funding for things we already have. So in light of that, I think asking for even 3 extra things, even though I agree with all 3 things on this list, and I appreciate the work that went into paring down all of the concerns and needs that the leaders did do for us. I know that was hard work, but I do have grave concerns about us asking for additional funding in a year where we know we will have to defend the funding we currently receive to protect it. Do we have any comments or questions?
Misha Saunier, Jill Hano, and Bambi all have their hands raised.
Ms. Sonia, you have the floor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to comment earlier before you had spoke that I was abstaining from discussion.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. Thank you. Ms. Hano, you have the floor.
Yes. Okay. I have 2 questions. Last year, I did notice that this legislative agenda in everything we've received from our leaders in looking in public input is very similar to last year.
Yes, it is.
In regards to the funding for DSW, do we, or I could be wrong if I'm not mistaken, can we just ask for DSP funding, or do we have to ask for an increase in provider rates in the DSW funding would go under that umbrella?
We can request funding for the direct service support workers. The problem I think we have is that I honestly believe we're going to have to defend the program that provides the direct support worker. I think the budget shortfall is going to be so large, I believe, and we don't have numbers yet to share on that, but we know it's going to be a large budget shortfall. And the way the Constitution is set up, healthcare and higher education, which direct support workers, of course, fall under healthcare, would be, and home and community-based services, which that's part of, all fall under healthcare in the budget. Those would be looked at for cuts. And so I believe we're going to have to protect and defend direct support workers in general. And so ask for a wage increase. First, we'd have to decide how much of one, which we already know to cover everyone, which is what we would want to do, would be in the multiple of millions of dollars, would be in addition to asking to please save the service. And I think given that the climate we're in, the pressures that I know will all be under due to the budget shortfall, I think it unwise to, as much as I agree they desperately need this, I think it unwise in this particular legislative year to ask for more money while we're having to defend the and protect the programming.
All right. So, okay, so now I'm thinking that our priority should be just to protect the current, and I think there was a motion in the E-committee that it's just to protect the funding that we already have.
Yes. And to look into ways to advocate for things that would be budget neutral or things that we're already doing.
That kind of leads me into my next question. Wait, can I ask a second question?
Yes, you may.
Okay, thank you. So, and I don't know how to word this, because I know we're due to COVID in the budget defect. The FHF the FHF directors and Lincoln leaders specifically wanted very few items.
That's right. They did, and I commend them. This is a very difficult thing to do to because there are so many needs, and I fully understand that it is a very difficult thing for them to have set and gone through those and come up with these three. And I fully understand that, and I fully support these three. But as your chair, as your leader, I have to make you aware that I strongly believe that we will have a large budget shortfall that will require us, we won't have a choice. We will have to defend programming. We will have to protect what this council and what years of advocacy have already, by all of us, have already, has been successful. So we will be called upon to protect those services. And I have no doubt about it. And so you need to be aware of that as we consider this, that each of these are very important, but they have large financial asks to each of them. And so what this would do is you would have us going in to ask for additional funding for these three items while we're asking for funding to protect and save our system. That is, I think that you have to be aware of.
Okay, so you kind of answered my next question. So today it is not in your plan to add to this?
I would be deeply concerned about adding extra funding dollars this budget year. I have, I know we're going to be defending projects and programs we already have in place. So it's not like we won't be doing anything. I want to make that clear. We will have a lot to do, I suspect, to defend programming and the things we have already achieved. I think the budget hole is going to be that large. And so you have to be aware of that. That's going to take a lot of time by all of us. That's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take everyone on the same page to save our home and community-based services as they currently stand. I believe that. And I have to, as your chair, I have to make you aware. That is my strong feeling on that. I also know that these three are very important and were hard to arrive at, but I mean, we have to take into account, I believe, the environment we're in, and it's going to take all hands on deck and everybody on board to defend the programming for home and community-based services in particular, I believe. And so we would be doing that in addition to doing these three financial asks. And we don't even have a number for number three, but we know it would be, to do it properly, we know it would be somewhere in the multi-million-dollar range. And I, as much as I support it, I just don't believe we would achieve it in this particular legislative climate we're going to face and budget shortfall I know we're facing. So that's my feeling about it. But this is before you, so do I have any more discussion?
Bambi has her hand raised.
Thank you, Randall.
Thank you, Jill. Bambi, you have the floor.
Ms. Polizzola, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. First off, I want to apologize for turning my camera off. I have a really bad headache, and I don't want you to all to see the really bad faces that I'm making. So that's why I'm turning my camera off. But first off, I'm going to stick to the 3 minutes because that's a really important, I think that was a really good thing that the council has put in place. So I encourage everybody to stay within the 3 minutes that's allotted. Secondly, in regards to these recommendations, one thing that I remember throughout being a part of the DD Council is something that Kay Marcel, who is a respected leader of the council for many years, and it is not our job to figure out how things are going to get funded. It is our job to advocate for what we need. It is the legislature's job to figure that out. And so we have to say what we need. Other entities that are advocating for funding of things, they're not concerned about necessarily the budget. They're asking for what's needed for their constituency, and that's what we need to ask for. And so I don't think that we should back down. I mean, I think we have to be aware and cognizant of budgetary issues, but in all honesty, we all know that there is always budgetary issues. We're always going to have to fight to keep the funding. And so the reason why I raised my hand was in regards to, I think Robin Wagner asked about the, the number 3, is it for funding for direct support workers across agencies, across OCDD and Office of Aging. And we, while there are people primarily in the DD system, we do have people in the Office of Aging system with developmental disabilities, but it's a much smaller number as far as my knowledge, because it just serves a different population for the most part. But one thing I want to keep in mind is that we need to make sure that we don't create disparities in our advocacy, because the Office of Aging Services affect people with developmental disabilities. It also leads to people to go into, the people in the aging system to go more readily into the like nursing home facilities. And that goes against our values, regardless if it's people with disabilities or not. So we have to look at things in a holistic way while we also focus on developmental disabilities. So I'm at my 3 minutes, and thank you.
Thank you, Bambi. And I want to make clear, I don't object to the agenda as presented. It did pass. It is our recommendation. I just, as your chair, wanted to make clear what the discussion had been and my concern as your leader. And of course, you know, what we decide today is what we will do. And I will wholeheartedly support any and all agenda items that we pass. But I had to make clear that, you know, this will be an unprecedented year coming up for our budget. And so we will have to keep that in mind. That will be a big factor. And we also have limited staffing, which we don't have a full staff. And it's been difficult in the years I've been on the council. It's been, you know, a monumental task for a full staff to help us advocate. So with our staff being reduced, that's another factor that I'm concerned and why I was, you know, in favor of a agenda that focused on existing services. But obviously this is a very contentious issue, and you know, I love all our advocates. I know all of the best advocacy networking group in this country. I have no doubt about it. You know, and so I take seriously this, you know, these are very important things. And of course, I will advocate for what we choose.
Mitch Iddens has a comment in the chat.
Yes.
He says, I think you're absolutely correct. We will be fighting to retain current services. We should be preparing for that collectively. And he also said again that he agrees with Randall. We're going to have a fight on our hands. And then we have hands and comments from the public.
Sure. Okay, so we can proceed with those. Who was first, or who is at the top of the list?
Julie Folse.
Ms. Folse, you have the floor.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Julie. I am the LaCan leader for Region 3. I respect everybody's opinions on this, on the advocacy agenda. My concern that I did raise in the executive committee meeting was that this list was brought to the LaCan leaders and the FHF directors from our members. This wasn't something that we personally came up with. And I was concerned of going to my members and telling them that nothing that they came up with that they felt was concerns would we advocate for. And then I was concerned with them being disheartened and no longer being active members of LACAN because of this. We do share with them that not everything they tell us will make it on the advocacy agenda, but to have no agenda, I was worried that my members would feel was very disheartening to them. My next thing is I have been a leader for the last 5 years, and we have had times where we have had an advocacy agenda where we have had multiple items, and we know it is a difficult year. So when we do our legislative visits, we do have that tone when we do meet with our legislators. And then there are times where we throw the agenda completely away and we have to tell our members, look, we tried to do this, but now we're in $1 billion deficit. So now we're running to save our services. So I kind of get a little lost on why there is such a discussion when we have had agendas before that whenever it came time for session where we were just there fighting to save our services. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next, Hannah?
Mike Billings from the committee council raised his hand.
Yes, Mike, you have the floor, sir.
Hey, good morning. I know it's been previously mentioned, but this was quite the subject during our executive committee meeting this week. And that's one of the reasons that I'm glad to see it before the full committee is LACAN and Families Helping Families both went to their constituents and developed this list. And I think it's important for the folks who need the services and obviously for LACAN and Families Helping Families to present it to us. I'm just glad to see it before the full council for action. And I support both sides. I understand that this year is going to be a tough year, but I'm of the mindset that we can't go in and not ask for anything because I think we're more apt to walk away with less if we ask for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Kathy Dwyer.
Yes, Miss Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, council members. Randall, you have every reason to be concerned about what the budget may be come next year. We've all experienced, particularly when the services were at greater risk a few years ago, where we all received letters. At the same time, being an advocate for almost 40 years, and I'm showing my age, I've watched over the years as we've asked for pieces of the pie. We would ask for 100 slots at a time when we had 13, 14, 15,000 on a waiting list. During those years, I've watched the legislature fund things like lighting for playgrounds and racetracks and things that weren't as important and necessary for our loved ones with disabilities. And I agree wholeheartedly with what Bambi has said. You know, it's not our responsibility to be concerned with the funding so much. I think we definitely need to show what we need. I in particular find the need for support workers to get a wage increase very important, especially because of COVID. There's a shortage already prior to COVID, and there's going to be a greater shortage during COVID, or already is, and that makes families struggle. You know, the providers are not necessarily able to just give pay raises unless we give it to them. Now, the last one I understand was kind of flexible for the providers to give it to DSWs or split it or whatever, but I think the direct support workers need one directly for them. That being said, We've also watched legislatures find money here and there. I had suggested during the committee meeting possibly a plan A and B, a plan A with all our requests, a plan B should there be a deficit, particularly since we won't know much until the revenue estimating conference comes up with what it may look like. And in the past, we've had requests during projected deficit years and then modified them later. So I would strongly recommend that we do give an ask, maybe with a condition, maybe with a plan A and B, with an explanation that should there be a severe budget shortfall as possibly anticipated, we may have to, just advocate to keep what we have. But I don't think we should not ask for anything. Like I said, we've gone for years with just pieces of the pie. I used to say it was just peanuts being thrown at us when we watched all these other people get lots of funding that wasn't life-sustaining funding. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Kathy. Do we have any other comments, Anna?
Liz Gary has her hand raised.
Yes, Liz, you have the floor.
Good morning, Randall. Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate what I had said yesterday during or whatever day it was, I lose track of when the EC committee met, and just express my concern only in making sure that we had something else, one or two or something that didn't cost money, just in case something did happen and come down as far as the finances. So I don't want to reiterate everything that was being said from before. I'm totally understanding the need to have agenda items there that are asking for money. I'm just stating be prepared for what could happen. I will let you know that I sit on the board of Florida Parishes Human Services Authority. And as this second extraordinary session's been going on, they were warned to send in a cut. And my Florida parishes had to send in a $290,000 cut in preparation that they potentially could have that cut this second extraordinary session. That did not happen because they rearranged money and they still had CARES funding. But if they don't, COVID funding. But if come January, that could all change. So my thought was just be prepared that this whole agenda may have to be paused if there's a fact that we just have to sink or swim, and we don't want to be sinking, because once again, the FMAP will not continue once a pandemic's gone, which means they will that LDH does not have to continue to protect the optional programs. They will be able to cut those programs if so desired. And so I'm just would share in that, and I appreciate the opportunity to say thank you, Randall.
Thank you. And I want to be clear. This is a recommendation. We had our discussion. I agree with the three items. I think that they're needed. There's no question in my mind about it, and I support the fact that we did the work and that these are presented for us. And certainly will advocate for anything and everything that we deem necessary. But I just felt it very important because it's going to be extraordinary, I believe, the level of cuts that might be required. And so I would have been remiss if I don't bring to your attention that fact. And so I do believe that we may have to pause these at some point just to save our services. So as long as everyone's aware of that, it's not that I oppose any of this. In fact, I fully understand its need. But I just want to be clear that I just wanted to make you fully aware of the environment and the things we are facing, both as a council, as a community, and as a state. Is there any more discussion?
We have a good bit of comments in the chat box.
Okay.
Would you like me to read those?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Melinda Elliott says, I mentioned this in the committee meeting, so I will say it again. If the DDC agrees to only adopt an agenda protecting funding, then the DDC is agreeing to a reactive agenda. The DDC has historically had a proactive agenda. I'm not necessarily saying to adopt them all, but this would be a dramatic change. Then Christy Curtis says she agrees with Melinda. Karonda Corley also strongly agrees with Melinda. And Karonda also says, thank you, Ms. Bambi Polazola. I echo those sentiments exactly. Kathy Dwyer agrees with Melinda and Bambi. Christy Curtis says, thank you, Bambi. From YouTube, LeCan leader Constance Brown says, as a leader, I agree with the chairman's stance. Susan Reen agrees with Bambi Polazola. Mimi Webb says, historically, we always defend when necessary, placing agenda on hold. Our only ask would be to not cut our funding/services, highlighting what we do get. Going in without an ask will lose our momentum entirely and send the message that we don't have any needs, which is not the situation at all. This is what our LeCan members have said is important to them. They also understand that we fight for no cuts historically and would feel unheard and potentially reduce involvement. Melinda Elliott says, thank you, Ms. Polazola. We always fight against cuts, but we need to make the family's needs known as well. Mitch Eden says, I'm not saying we should not continue to ask for needed service. I just want us to also be prepared for the stance of the legislatures saying we have no additional funds and we are in a major budget deficit. Kathy Dwyer says, I forgot to add that after Katrina and Rita, we ended up with a significant surplus because of the influx of federal funds. I believe that is it.
Okay. Thank you all. So is there any discussion from the council? If there are no other comments.
Hey, Randall?
Yes.
Sorry, this is Brenton. If I may just say one quick thing. If it is the will of the council to have the funding for direct support worker wage increase on there.
Yes.
We as staff, we need to have more direction because that's awfully broad. I mean, I would recommend y'all consider trying to figure out if you want to look for a certain amount an hour of an increase. That way we could try to work with some partners to figure out what that funding would look like. We just, to do the research, we have to have more guidance than just an increase. We kind of need to know what amount y'all are looking to increase to.
Okay. Do the directors or leaders have an amount in mind?
It's my understanding they left that up to the council.
Yeah, okay, that's what I want to make sure of. And so what's our feeling on how much of a wage increase we should ask? And I'm asking that to the council. Were there any suggestions?
Randall?
Rosalind is trying to get your attention.
Yes.
Hi.
Yes,
I'm going to be speaking for the council with this question because I am asking the council. You know, how much would we all would do, or how can we go about it with money-wise as a group?
Well, I think I'm going to ask that if it's the will of the council that this be the recommendation we accept, I'm going to entertain a motion for this to be voted on, and then for us to consider the amount for the wage increase.
Well, because that's what I want to know. And, you know, I wanted to put that out there for, you know, as a group that we are. And that, and, you know, I feel we should really put a vote on that because every time we do this, we always take the next step forward. And that's what I really want. And I want to really, you know, do this as a group. And I don't want to, you know, call myself out of the group, you know, as a team. player or a team member.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you, Rosalind. Okay, I would like to entertain a motion if someone's agreeable for this to be approved, this legislative agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda, Randall.
Thank you, Mitch. Mitch has made a motion.
I would second it.
Rosalind has seconded. Okay. Kelly, you have your hand raised.
Yes.
You have the floor.
Hi. I know everybody is kind of familiar with the history of the wage pass-through that's happened in the past. And I was just curious that if there is another wage pass-through where it has to go through the providers in order for the DSPs to get it, is there any way that you guys can put into the bill or in the appropriation that the once given that the department cannot take it back? Because last time it was only in there for about 6 months when the department didn't have the money and had to take the money back and cut, and the providers were stuck with having to pay extra with no additional dollars.
Thank you.
That's how we came up with the restore the rate back to 2008. And I mean, just to be honest, we're still at the providers are still at 2008 funds and are not at 2020 funds. So although every provider I know would love to give raises, we can't afford to give them, and then for the department to then take it back from them. Thanks.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor to accept the legislative agenda as presented. I have a second from Rosalind. So I'm going to ask for a vote. And so all in favor, say aye. And all opposed,
Aye.
no.
Aye.
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 And also, let me be clear, if you abstain, we need you to say so. We need you to state it.
I, Hyacinth McKee, abstain.
Okay.
I, Michelle Guillory, abstain.
Kim Bazile abstains.
Lillian Dejean abstains.
Julie Foster Hagan abstains.
Stephen Wynn abstain.
Jen Katzman abstains.
Amisha Sonye abstain.
Laura Thornton for Patty Vecchio abstains.
Philip Wilson.
Sure. Abstains.
I'm sorry, Dr. Wilson, did you say you abstain?
No, I said aye. Yes, I vote for the proposed.
And was everyone's vote been recorded? Do we have any no's?
Randall, I'm sorry, I didn't mute my,
That's
mic.
okay. Do we have anyone that votes no? Hearing none, the motion passes by majority vote. And so we would have to decide. I need to reiterate that if you're a proxy for someone, you cannot vote today. The proxy you can speak for, but you cannot vote. So just to have that clear for the record. But we had no no's. So it's a passage by the majority.
Randall,
Yes, Joe.
we have um some public comment saying that according to
Parliamentary procedure.
Procedures, we should take a roll call vote, but I don't know. And then we had several members or a member of the council and a public comment that agreed with her. So, but I'm not sure how that is.
Well, we can call for a roll call vote.
Okay.
Courtney, do we have, can Hannah or someone on staff call the roll for a vote? Yes, Mary.
I thought we only had to have a roll call vote if somebody voted no.
Well, typically, yes. I mean, that's why I asked for no's. But
okay.
We are in a digital format. If the council agrees they want a roll call vote, then we can certainly do one.
Okay. I was confused.
Should we get the, I'm just reading comments.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
No idea.
Thank you. As it stands right now, the motion has passed. I don't think a roll call vote is needed. But how does the council request a roll call vote? Hearing no request, the motion is passed by majority vote. And I would call at this point for a recess. So to have a motion for recess.
I'll make a motion, Randall.
Okay. So Mitch has made a motion. To have a second for a motion for a recess?
Make a second.
Okay. Michelle, I believe is seconded.
That's correct.
And we will do a roll call vote on all votes in the future today, just for everyone's knowledge. Okay. And so having no objection or hearing no objection, we will have a 10-minute recess. So everyone please prepare to return at 10:14. And thank you, everybody. We'll see everyone at 10:14.
All right, what are we doing now?
We're on a 10-minute break, so we'll come back at 10:14.
Thank you. Appreciate.
Okay, it's now 10:16. That's a couple minutes over our break time, so I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Can everyone please turn on your screens, your cameras?
How did we manage to go over our time limit on break?
Sometimes we do. And so we went about 2 minutes over, so it's okay. We just need to bring the meeting back to order. And if everyone could please turn your cameras on. Okay, and so now we need to have the discussion of the amount for the DSPW, for the direct support worker wage increase. I would suggest a dollar amount, as if to say $1 or $2. Okay, so we don't need to have that discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, that should come after reports. My apologies.
Do we have a quorum, Randall?
Courtney, we do have a quorum, do we not?
I only see you.
Okay. I guess we don't. Thank you for making me aware of that, Jill.
We have quorum.
We do? Okay. I thought we did. Okay.
Because I'm missing some paperwork in my packet.
Okay. We'll get.
I don't know exactly which paperwork that we are on with my packet I do have.
Okay. We will get figure out here in just a second where we are and help you out there.
Dr. Wilson has his hand raised, Randall.
Yes, Dr. Wilson, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah, as far as the discussion about the specific wage, I don't know how to word this, but we've been advocating for 20 years now, since I've been on the council on and off over the last 20 years, for wage increases and for the money to go directly to the workers, not through the provider agencies and so forth. One of the things that I think has driven the discussion is that we know that direct support workers are very vital and important, and that they're extremely underpaid, which creates all kinds of issues with people coming and going in and out of the profession and so forth. If there is a way to get back to the discussion we were engaged in 10 years ago around a living wage, and that whatever the legislature does begins to start a cascade or a continuum of, okay, this year we can give you a nickel, next year we can give you 30 cents, or maybe it's every so many years there's a bump that's built into the way the legislature has to think about funding their programs through, with OCDD and Medicaid and so forth. That might give you that magic, okay, we don't need to ask for a certain dollar amount, but we need a commitment to creating a living wage for people who are doing very important work in our state.
Thank you, sir. And that discussion will continue. I misspoke. We actually will do that shortly, but that discussion will continue. But your comments are noted, sir. Do we have any other report related questions or anything we need to add, Courtney, in terms of our reports?
Well, I believe we need to begin giving the committee reports.
Yes, but I'm talking about yours and mine before we go into committee reports.
No, sir.
Okay. And so now we have before us our committee reports. And the first we will call upon is our Act 378 Subcommittee Chair, Ms. Bambi Polizzola.
All right, which packet is that? And what paperwork is that?
That would be your Act 378 Subcommittee Report from Bambi, Ms. Bambi Polizzola. And Bambi, you have the floor to begin your report when you're ready.
Do not believe Ms. Polizzola is with us right now.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Bambi, you have the floor for your report.
Okay, let me.
378. Bambi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Sure, no problem.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Bambi, if you do, can I see the front of your paperwork so I could look for mine?
Rosalind, it wouldn't be in your packet because it wasn't something that was available last week.
Oh, okay. That's what I wanted to find out. That's why I'm asking.
So Bambi will give us her report here in just a second.
Okay.
She'll tell us.
So the Act 378 Subcommittee met yesterday and reviewed the fiscal year 20 year-end data and fiscal year 21 first quarter data for programs within Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities, Behavioral Health, and Office of Aging and Adult Services, which is through the ARC of Louisiana. These reports can be found on the council's website under the council meeting section if you would like to review. We do not have any recommendations for the council to consider, but there are a few things worth sharing. We discussed some of the impacts of COVID-19 pandemic had on the districts and authorities' ability to provide services for the regions. 4 were unable to expend at least 95% of their individual and family support or IFS funding and community care resource funding. We did ask the districts and authorities to provide information on how they plan to expend their funds, considering the pandemic is ongoing and will impact this fiscal year as well. OCDD also provided the committee with a regional breakdown of priority requests for the individual and family support program for this past fiscal year. This information included the types of services requested, costs associated with each request, and how many individuals were served. We also reviewed the approved pending funding report for IFS for the first quarter of the state fiscal year 21. All of these reports are linked in our committee agenda if interested. We also discussed a letter that was submitted to the council by Mr. Anthony Luczak. Specifically, Mr. Luczak cites concerns for access to psychological testing in Medicaid, OCDD's eligibility process for services and testing through the public schools. The Department of Health, Louisiana Department of Health, has researched the concerns listed by Mr. Luczak and has not found any additional action was needed at the time. They have offered to meet with Mr. Luczak individually to continue discussions of his concerns. The Department of Education also responded to the letter and stated that they were committed to working with all agencies to ensure concerns are addressed and improvements made where necessary.
Thank you, Bambi. Are there any questions of Bambi's report? Again, are there any questions for Bambi?
Ms. Nicole Banks has her hand raised.
Yes, Nicole, you have the floor.
Hi, Council. Thank you guys for hearing me. I am actually new to the council, so I was reviewing the budget upon the website, and under contracts, it's like 1.1 million or so. Are the contracts like with different companies, or what is the contract?
Courtney,
Are
would
you
you like
talking
to
about
answer that?
the budget for the DD Council?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with the budget for the
That's
first quarter that you were talking about.
no, right now we're talking about Bambi's report from the Act 378 subcommittee.
Yeah, she mentioned this budget though that's up online, and you asked if you had any questions. I just was asking what does the contract part means, because she said we can pull it up on the website.
Okay, so your question is what are the contracts?
Yeah, what is the contract like? Is it like particular companies that's doing something for the council, or is it like
Yes.
we're subcontract? Okay.
Yes, there are contracts that we have with certain vendors for services.
Okay, for the services that we provide to the people with disabilities, correct?
Yes, and
Okay.
in regard to there's also contracts for some of the office work and issues and such as well. We have multiple different contracts to help us provide services.
It just says contract, so I
Randall.
was like, okay, that's a big chunk just to say contract.
Yes,
That's what I was
Bambi.
just asking.
Sure, I understand.
Hi,
Bambi,
Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Welcome to the council.
Hi.
So I know it's a little bit confusing that what I'm talking about is the budgets for the human service districts, which
Right.
are in the 10 regions of our state. So we're talking about their budgets and how they spent money. And I think what you're talking about is the council's budget.
Yes.
And those
Okay.
contracts, which I think we'll talk about later, or contracts like that are part of our 5-year plan. You'll hear us talk a lot about that. So there's contracts with different entities based on the council's goals. And so those are with different entities. You'll hear I think a lot about that later on in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Bambi. I was about to get to that point. Thank you very much, Bambi. Thank you, and welcome, Nicole, to the council.
Thank y'all.
Are there any questions with regard to Bambi's Act 378 subcommittee report? Rosalind, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, Bambi. What I want to know for what you just said, does that conclude other states, or is it just going to be in the state of Louisiana with that?
Yeah, usually everything we talk about is within the state of Louisiana.
Oh,
So yes,
that's why I
yeah.
was saying that, because for me, I didn't know if you was, with Alabama or with, Tennessee or Texas besides us. That's why I was asking. That's why I wanted to know.
Louisiana.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm on the same page as you on that. I didn't want to be confused. Thank you, Bambi.
You're welcome.
Ms. Corley, do you have a question? Karanda?
I see that
Oh,
Jill
go ahead.
Egley has her hand raised.
Bambi, I know I just got reappointed for the DD Council. Can you in a few minutes, just embrace to me what this is all about, because my brain is going into different directions. I just want to be on the same page as you. I know I'm back on the DD Council. I just want to make sure I understand what is implemented.
Okay, so I know that you were just appointed to Act 378. We had that committee meeting yesterday. I'm not sure if you were on or not. So I was just giving that report of that discussion. And so Act 378 of 1989 was really the legislation that created the home and community based service system. Basically, kind of everything that we do here is based on that. And so part of what we do is just kind of monitor that to make sure that our state agencies are funding things in a way that is in line with that legislation, with Act 378.
And the way it should be. Okay. So it comes up every year with the state capital and funding the way the House and the Senate, it needs to be funded legally within the state services and the government, correct?
It from the legislative perspective of how they fund it, and also with the state agencies and also like state agencies, including our the human service districts, so we call the LGEs, the local government entities, to make sure that it's kind of following what the intent of the law is. So Act 378 is basically kind of a monitoring committee to make sure that we're following those principles that were in that law.
And Ms. Bambi, do you ever know, this is the last professional question, in terms of the human services district authority and parishes for people with disabilities, is it ever going to level out and playing game between 2021 and the future, so we don't have any issues with that?
I would say based on historical, what's happened in the past, no, we always have to be kind of vigilant and advocating. So,
oh Lord, okay.
And I think we made progress, but we have to always continue to monitor and make sure that things are being done. So our work will never end, is to answer your question. And then one more comment I'll just make is that it's Act 378, even though I'm the chair of the committee and been on the DD Council for most of the past decade, it's can be confusing. So don't feel like anyone feel like they're, just because you don't understand something, it's okay to ask questions about it. And it's a very complex
system.
In my opinion, it's complex. So.
Yeah, I got you, Bambi.
Are there any other questions for Bambi about her report? Before we move on, I want to note that the report will be filed. And we are ready for our next report.
We have comments in the chat box, Randall.
My apologies. Thank you. Could you please read those, Madam Vice Chair?
Liz made a comment about based on Rosalind's request as to what report was being referred to. Is it possible to have copies via email made available for those on the council who may need to have something in writing also? That's from Liz Gary.
Thank you, Liz.
Jill Eagle was a question directed to Ms. Liz Gary, but I think that Bambi may have addressed it and answered it.
Okay, good.
And then there's a question for Honda from Ms. Corley. Can Mr. Luke Zach's letter be addressed on the appropriate committee like education, executive, etc.? We have some cracks in the system that our individuals with DDID are falling in and needs to be addressed.
Noted, Ms. Corley. We will, the 378 committee discussion, which I have to admit I was not present for yesterday. I believe she indicated he will be able to meet with the Department of Health, and I would presume that we will be made aware of whatever discussions or remedies they may achieve in those discussions. And if necessary, then we would review it again after they've had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Luxack and have their discussions. The report will be filed. So if there are no other comments, we're ready for our next report. And that is the Education and Employment Committee. And so Mary Tarver, Chair, you have the floor.
Hi. Good morning. Yesterday we had our Education and Employment Committee meeting. We had Dr. Kelly Peterson, who's the new assistant superintendent, and was as part of our committee yesterday because our Louisiana Department of Education staff has changed around, and so she filled in, but they are trying to hire people into the Department of Education and are kind of having a time with their staff. Dr. Peterson did take a lot of questions yesterday, and certainly gave us information about how they are reevaluating the programs, looking at how they're set up to handle our special education classes, and they just have a lot of work to do. But I think that they definitely gave a message of willingness and knowing that they have some things to work on, and gave hope, I guess, that they'll be reaching out and providing some other information to us at our next meeting for our education component of our meeting. She also had some guidance that she just shared, some resources for the special education Strong Start 2020. She talked a little bit about that. And then she talked about the alternate assessment participation, and that there were, the Louisiana Department of Education is asking for a waiver, and they're accepting comments until October the 24th for the alternate assessment. There's a 1% participation with kids that participate in an alternate assessment, and they have some outlines that they have to do, some more, the school systems that fall into that have things that they have to participate in with the department. And so they are asking for a waiver extension. They, the 1.0% is not something that we've achieved, and it's not basically, it's not all due to COVID. It was some things that were happening before, so they are starting to work on that and trying to look at how they can fix the issue with the assessment. So I think that we got good information yesterday, and like I said, she took a lot of questions. Melissa Baham from the Louisiana Rehabilitation Services also gave us an update. Their services have seen an impact from COVID because people were not participating and not having work areas participating with the activities related to their clients. So currently they are seeing an increase in activities, and they are hoping to, they have their offices open. They're making some accommodations to try and meet the needs of the clients that they have. So they're hoping to continue to see an increase in activities with the Louisiana Rehabilitation Service. That's my report.
Sorry about that. Are there any questions for Mary with regard to her report? And thank you, Mary.
Rosalind has her hand raised.
Yes, Rosalind, you have the floor.
This is what I want to find out from you, Miss Mary. I forgot to even ask you this yesterday when we had the meeting. Now, for the staffing, are we all gonna kind of with the pay raise, or is that going to be with what? For what is in your report, Miss Mary? Mary.
Yesterday that we in the education committee and the employment committee, we were talking about the people that are signed up and go through the Louisiana Rehabilitation Services, like people who are looking for jobs independently, not the direct care providers. That was in another committee meeting yesterday.
That's the question I was trying to get to. So how can we kind of, with the pay, is that going to be with the pay rate in it, what, how that's going to work on with it?
We didn't talk about that specifically in our education committee meeting yesterday.
Because I was lost yesterday and I was in the meeting with y'all, but I was trying to understand where, I kind of, where, what, was discussed.
Well, there were a lot of questions for the Department of Education, and Dr. Peterson was answering those. There were several items that came up there, but I know that the DD staff will have our meeting summary, and if you want, when we get that done, I'll be glad to go over it with you individually if you want.
What I really want, could I ever get that kind of paperwork where, I would kind of see it in black and white?
Yeah, as soon as we get the meeting summary done, and then we'll, and we talked yesterday about getting you the information from the education committee.
Yeah.
In advance.
That's what I would
work on that.
Yeah, that's what I really would like.
Okay.
Because I would so, lost in the shuffle. Because right now I'm lost in a shuffle.
Well, right now we're just giving a summary from yesterday. So we'll work out, make sure that you get the information from our education and employment committee, and then we'll talk on the phone, just you and I, and we can go over it. And that way, whenever we have our next meeting, you'll be ready.
Okay then. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions for Mary's report, for Mary about her report?
Miss Mary, I have a question.
Yes, Jill, you have the floor.
Is the Start Strong program for the school year in general, or does it have is it more COVID guideline based? Or is it just general?
It really, for this school year, does have a lot of influence related to COVID and how schools need to help with the special education for the teachers, for the parents. There was a family toolbox for students with disabilities, and some reopening guidance. So it is a lot of information related to COVID, since there were so many children that are doing, some are doing traditional class face-to-face, some are doing hybrid, like go one day and then online one day, and then some kids that are doing virtual or homeschool environment. So the Strong Start 2020 is to help families and students and teachers during this new school year related to students with disabilities, but that it definitely had a lot of things that they had to put in place for the change due to COVID. So it was a lot of COVID related.
It's Strong Start or Start Strong?
Strong Start.
Okay, thank you.
And she has the, Dr. Peterson put in her Louisiana Department of Education committee meeting, there's some links to the Strong Start off of her report if you want to look at them.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for Mary about her report? I believe Ms. Karanda has a question in the chat box. Can someone read that, please?
Yes, Ms. Karanda asked, are we aware of the Louisiana Department of Education changing the bulletins constantly? She also has her hand raised.
Yes, Karanda, you have the floor.
Great morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. First, yesterday I asked several, did not get addressed by Ms. Peterson, and as everyone is aware, her and I will be meeting. But the lack of response, because we're all aware that yes, this is an unprecedented time that no one was ready for, but we have so many children with PD and intellectual disabilities that are not receiving accommodations or modifications in the educational arena. And I'm so sorry that I stepped away for when it came to Mr. Luzak's letter, but that letter did not just specify things dealing with the educational arena. It talked about across the different agencies. And so there's a gap in between different agencies. We don't have institutions for long-term mental health for our developmental or intellectual disabilities. The longest term we have right now in the state of Louisiana is 6 months. And we have individuals that actually need mental health services in an inpatient setting for longer than 6 months. And that right now does not exist in Louisiana. We also have a major gap where it comes to education for our children with intellectual and developmental disabilities with virtual as it relates to the curriculums. We've always had curriculum problems when it came to our children with disabilities, but it has been magnified on another level as it applies to virtual. So I'm just trying to see, as far as, and I understand that Dr. Peterson is new in her position, but Mr. Cade Brumley has been in that position longer than 100 days, to where he could have someone else who is more suffice in being able to give our community some type of response to these questions in a more prudent and effective way. And so I'm just asking that we quit allowing them to keep giving us mediocrity when we want more of an answer. And the lack of answer and response is just not something that we should keep settling for. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Council.
Rhonda, your concerns are noted. Thank you. Are there any other questions with regard to Mary's report? Hearing none, the report will be filed. Thank you, Mary. And so our next report is the Executive Director search. And as Courtney mentioned in her report, we were instructed by our federal partners that we were out of compliance with the makeup of the committee. This was accidental, it wasn't deliberate. And so I took steps in my authority as your chair to adjust the committee in accordance with the the passage of our motion at the October 2019 meeting. So a year ago, when we as a council voted to make up the composition of the committee, I simply took steps to make sure that the committee reflected the makeup that's put forth in that motion, which is your executive committee plus 2 members of each standing committee. And so I took steps immediately to rectify that. And I want to make clear that everyone's welcome at those committee meetings, and you can certainly participate in discussion as we have those moving forward. And we have one scheduled for the 29th, and that's where I expect for us to be talking with our partner, which is Llano. That's the group we chose to assist us with the search. Their team is meeting with us, should be meeting with us next Thursday, I believe, the 29th. And so that's where I expect we will get from them our plan, our overall modified now plan for dates for the process. And we'll have a better idea of how they envision the process will go. And we'll be talking about that at that next meeting, I presume, as well as what we need to do in terms of a job description or anything they may need from us to get the process fully going. But so that's where we are with that. It took us, there were some delays because of the hurricanes and such. And so it's taken us a while to get everything back and scheduled and make sure we had a quorum for the dates. But as I said, our next meeting, which I expect to be very productive, will be next Thursday, the 29th, I believe, if I'm correct about that. And Brenton, if you have anything to add, please feel free.
I have nothing additional. My goal for those that are interested is that we could have our agenda set by the end of this week to put up online. But I can't put anything out there until Llano is done completing the work that they need to do.
Correct. We gave them a deadline to complete the work so that we would know what to put on our agenda for them, because they will essentially be leading most of the meeting, I anticipate, next Thursday. So as soon as we get that data, I know Brenton will make it public, and I encourage anyone who can to please attend. Do I have any questions with regard to this report?
It's me again, Randall.
Yes, Rosalind.
For that date, do we have a time setting for that? And how are we all going to join on Zoom?
It would be a Zoom meeting just like this is. It's a Zoom meeting just like this. And so you would register for it, and I can get a member of the staff, Brenton or someone, to help register you for it. And then you would just log into it just like you did today's meeting through the link.
Is there a link to it?
There will be. There is. And so I'll have Brenton reach out to you.
I'll
After
put the link
today.
in the chat.
Pardon, Brenton?
I'll put the registration link in the chat once I get to it.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir.
Much on that,
Thank you.
because I don't have a phone right now. and
Sure.
I'm trying to update my phone and that, and you know.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that you get that link and you're able to participate next week with us, okay?
That's what I wanted to find out from you.
All right.
Now, whoever wants to help me out with it, hey, I would appreciate.
We surely will. You will be there. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions with regard to my report on the Executive Director Search Committee? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, the report will be filed. And so our next report is the 5-year fiscal year 2022 through 2026 Planning Committee. And we did meet over 2 days and develop a plan with some goals and objectives. And Courtney, do we have that to place up on the screen?
We will shortly.
Okay, so let's give a moment for that to occur, but we did meet over a 2-day period to discuss these issues. Your 5-year planning committee met, and we had a robust discussion among ourselves and the public who attended. And so what you'll see on your screen is the result of that work. We had 3 goals and several objectives for each. And so we'll have some discussion on that as soon as that's able to be posted for everyone to see.
Oh, that's right.
Everyone, please bear with us. We'll have it shortly. Okay, so this was the product of what we came up with in our committee meeting. I do have to say that I had additional discussions with our federal partners about the plan. We do need one targeted disparity only. They highly recommended we focus on one targeted disparity. And so I'm going to leave it up to us today in our discussion as to which one as a council we feel we want to focus on. But that was the recommendation, that we target one area for our targeted disparity for the 5-year plan.
All right, what paper is that you showing?
This is the goals and objectives for our 5-year plan. It's not in your packet. It was online. And so this is what's on the screen is what we're talking about.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
so,
I'm the shop.
and so you can see here, there were 3 goals. There's one is the community living and supports goal with the objectives of health, community supports, and the recommended activities. Those activities will be set at another meeting. These were just suggestions we came up with, and so we listed them. So to have them on record for when we have the meeting for the objectives, which will be soon, but I don't have that date at the moment.
No, we
And
don't.
the next was recreation, transportation, and housing. With our second goal being self-advocacy and advocacy leadership. And there you can see the bullet points are our objectives for that goal, and the check marks are recommended activities, which again, a committee will meet separately to discuss those in the future. We just put those down because we felt they were great suggestions for those objectives. And the third point is education and employment. And there you see the bullet point for the objective, which is a rather long one, and then the recommended activities for that. And that's a continuation, another objective there for education and employment. So this is currently before us for discussion. Any discussion? What area would we like to see be our targeted disparity? Would be my question, because our federal partners made clear with me in discussions that we need essentially one targeted disparity for our 5-year plan. We need one area that we focus our attention on specifically. And that would be something that we definitely want to complete at the end of the 5-year plan or have completed.
Mr. Brown, this is Courtney.
Yes, Courtney, you have the floor.
Would you like for me to put on the screen the information on targeted disparity?
I would, yes, ma'am, yes.
My tablet is knocking everything out where I could read.
Okay, so on the screen we see these are the highlights that the DD Act has for populations with regards to targeted disparity. And that's racial and ethnic minority backgrounds, disadvantaged people and those living in poverty, people who speak or use English as a second language, individuals in underserved geographic areas, rural and urban areas, other groups within the population of the developmental disability community, and people who require technology to participate in and contribute to the community life. So those are the things we're looking at when we look for targeted disparity to list. And we, as a committee, we had difficulty. We understand that the need is great on so many issues, And as a committee, we had difficulty really choosing one targeted disparity. But from what I understand from our federal partners, is it's more or less going to be required, in that if we submit this plan and it doesn't have a clear targeted disparity, it's likely to be rejected and sent back to us for clarity. And so I want to use today to ask the council, what do you feel should be our targeted disparity from that list of work we produced of the three objectives, the three goals with various objectives within it? What does the council feel should be our targeted disparity, the one we focus the most of our energy on, and that with the goal of having it completed within the span of the 5 years, at the end of the 5 years? So it needs to be something we feel we could do and have complete by 2026.
This is Phil. I've been raising my hand as I was instructed throughout this whole morning, but it doesn't seem to be working. So I just jumped in here because I just want.
That's fine. Thank you, sir.
If I were looking, because I'm looking at this list, I would absolutely focus on the second group, the people, disadvantaged people living in poverty. The reason being is that it is of all of the things in the list, it's the one thing that cuts across all the other groups. I believe that if you live in poverty, you really are at a huge disadvantage in our society. And so I see it as the most important thing to address. That's my personal opinion and my professional opinion as well. But I also want to just briefly say there is no way in 5 years that we are going to address any of the things on this list in a way of check, it's done. It can be our focus, and we should be able to show outcomes. But these are things that will plague mankind for
Sure, and I understand that, but I mean, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is I want us to choose something that we feel we can make a lot of progress toward. Maybe I should have said that in a better way, but we certainly want to choose a targeted disparity that we can certainly show a good measure of improvement in a 5-year span. That's what they're wanting us to do.
Right, and I guess I would just, I work for the same, I work for ACL, same as you, and
yes,
or the council. So knowing kind of how the thinking of ACL is I don't think that anybody is thinking any of these 5, 6 bullets here are going to be things that we are going to move heaven and earth in terms of where we are today and where we are 5 years from now. I just want to stress that we should be committed to whichever of these 6 disparity areas, and we should do everything in our power to make as much change as we can in all 6 of them.
Absolutely.
The one that we focus on, right?
Absolutely.
I think you may be over interpreting what they are saying to you or to the council in terms of we expect, this to be, we are going to make progress, whatever we pick. We need to document what progress we made. But I think this is a huge undertaking that's going to take, unfortunately, much more than 5 years. That's my only point. Randall, we might be saying the same thing. I'm just hearing it differently.
I think I misspoke. You're saying essentially what I intended to say. It's just that I want to make sure that we do a goal that is measurable, that we know that we can make a lot of progress or make a lot of headway in that 5-year span is what I meant to say. Of course, obviously, any of this work, any of the advocacy we do is always ongoing, and things are always developing and changing, and and we always have to keep our finger on the pulse of what the community needs are, and they're always great and significant, and I don't anticipate that changing, but they do, in our targeted disparity, they do want to see a goal that we can quantify and accurately measure in that sense of having met. as in met the goal we set. Yeah, I don't think we're going to eradicate poverty in 5 years, but I do think we want to set a goal that we can accurately measure and meet with regard to moving the ball forward in whatever area we select. So having said that and thank you, Phil, for your clarification there. I appreciate it. And so Courtney, could we put our work back on the screen, the committee proposal?
Excuse me. Right, excuse me for interrupting, Randall. It's me. It's Robin. I do agree for what Phil did say about our bill said, but could we choose at least 3 of them, and we could work on at least 3 of them?
Well, these are the 3 goals that we have suggested. And so now we're looking at objectives for each, those bullet points underneath where it says objectives, health, and such. And so what we need to do is,
excuse me again. Which 3?
we need,
Which 3 are they? Because could we add another one to it, or not? Or which 3 topics are we working on?
we could, I think the 3 goals are fair. I think that we were bearing in mind the staff.
Are you really, how can I say, suggesting? Because when I read it, you don't have numbers by them, you have dots. So how?
Yeah, I see. For objectives, yes.
Yeah. So how do I know which 3 are you really suggesting?
Well, we haven't suggested anything yet. I'm open to suggestions on what our targeted disparity should be from the council.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like trying to read it, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, which way are we going toward? And what
it would be if we adopt this plan as we have written it, it will be these 3, the ones where you see numbers, the one where it says community living and supports, that would be our first goal. And then the one that says number 2, I don't have it on my screen at the moment, that would then be our second goal. There you go. Self-advocacy and advocacy leadership would be our second goal of our plan. And then the third goal would be education and employment. And that would be the third goal of the plan. And then these dots underneath each one are objectives for us to try to achieve to meet that goal. These are things we think we need to do to try and meet that goal.
It feels like with dots, and I didn't see, the 1, 2, and 3. It was like, that's what.
I understand. Yeah, it's hard to show on all our screens, and I apologize for that. It's a big document, so it's hard to show fully on the screen at once.
I feel like I'm at a road trying to really decide, should I go with 1, 2, or 3? Now, which 3 or 1 out of 3, which one would be good to, kind of choose?
I think, personally, I think all 3 goals are good. I would recommend that we stick with the 3 goals. I think they were very well thought out. We had a long 2-day process. Your committee met and discussed these, and I think they did a great job. And it's difficult to do to put into 3 goals, but I think the goals are good. I think now what we need to look at is our objectives for each goal.
All right, that's
particularly the targeted disparity. I'd like to see us choose one area, one project to comment on. And so
can we choose 2 goals instead of 1?
Well, we have 3.
We have to choose 1.
We have 3. And so I have to stop just a second and see if we have a quorum, because I think there's an issue as to whether or not we have enough members with their cameras on. And I'll remind everyone, that's how we maintain and count for a quorum today, is to please have your cameras on during the discussion, because that's how we maintain our quorum.
Nicole Banks has her hand raised, Randall.
Yes, Nicole. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. I have been reviewing both of these, you guys' goals and objectives. And just me personally, I think that education and employment should be one of our goals. But I think that maybe we can add some of, just kind of tweak it a little bit and add some of the objective from each of the other counterparts to go in there to fit in there with the education and the unemployment, because the education part allows you to do the early screenings and to have those services there for the people with the disabilities that need it. So I feel like that would be our number one thing, because to get them educated and to get them employed and into society, that's what our goal is. I think that should be one of our focuses, but I think we could tweak it just a little and add some of the community supports in there and some of the advocacy part up in there.
Well, let me be clear that everything in this plan will be done, will get done. Every goal and every objective we approve will get done. That's why it's here. But for the issue of targeted disparity, we'd like one particular issue where we put our laser focus, like we say as a council.
Right.
This is
I would
the
say
area,
education and
this is the one area that we must have movement, change. And so that's what I'm asking for.
Well, that's my vote. You all know my whole vote. I'm saying it right now. I want education and employment, because I think that should be our focus. Nobody can take away what you have learned, ever. So
great point.
That's my thing.
So you have the one targeted disparity topic is to be assigned to one objective. So it's the one, we have to choose from among all the objectives, one objective that we want to see targeted for the 5-year plan. And I know these are a lot of very good objectives. We had difficulty as a committee targeting one disparity, but our federal partners really want to see us target one area for our 5-year plan for the disparity. And again, I'll reiterate, all of this, everything we put in the plan will be done, will get done. But the targeted disparity is important because they want a quantifiable, measurable objective that they can measure throughout the 5 years, actually. So that's what I'm asking of us, is to decide what we think as a council should be our targeted disparity for this plan. And Nicole has made education and employment her choice. Is there any other discussion?
I have a question,
Yes,
Randall, please.
yes.
Okay, so are these 3 goals necessarily in order of priority, or?
No.
Okay.
As far as they'll all have equal priority. We just have to have a list to dictate what we're going to do. Now, in the terms of the topic, the targeted disparity, that's what we're saying, is that we'll choose one of these objectives to be the thing we focus most of our energy on completing or doing.
Can we see, Courtney, those 6 targeted disparities. I said that wrong.
There you go.
Can you shed some light on what other groups within the population of DD is? Because these are all so good.
Right. Well, it's a broad category, but it would be all groups that are not mentioned before there it's essentially telling us that to be cognizant of all groups within our community and our society as a whole in the DD community, to be mindful of all groups of the within our population.
Mr. Chair, may I give an example?
You may, yes, Courtney.
So Ms. Hayno, that would be like a cross disability coalition. So someone who has a developmental disability in addition to, say, for instance, a mental health diagnosis.
Okay, all right. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. And so with all this information, and I know it's a lot to process, but do we have a sense of what we'd like for our targeted disparity, our one objective or issue to be?
Lillian Dejan and Nicole Banks both have their hands raised.
Lillian, we'll give you an opportunity to speak first.
Just as a point of clarification, are we currently prioritizing a targeted disparity right now, or are we prioritizing an area like community supports and services and education and employment?
Well, I mean, the targeted disparity should be an objective from the areas. And so I'm having it open to what you feel should be the targeted disparity. Everything here will get addressed, but the targeted disparity is the one thing that we want to make sure that is measurable and we can, show improvement on or toward throughout the 5 years of the plan. So is there any one particular area you think or feel that should be the targeted disparity or issue?
I do not have any current input, but I do appreciate the additional information.
Okay.
So Randall, if I may make just one more point of clarity.
You may, yes, ma'am.
So we are asking for the council to select one of these 6 targeted disparities and assigning that targeted disparity to one of the objectives. So we are selecting one of these 6, and we will also be selecting which objective to assign that targeted disparity to.
Thank you. And I understand that's not an easy task we're asking of you.
Randall.
Yes, sir.
I apologize. I couldn't raise my hand. Thank you for calling on me. As a provider of home and community-based services and part of the Community Provider Association, from my perspective, individuals in underserved geographic areas is a big topic for us, both rural and urban. And in all honesty, both of them, we have a very difficult time finding the necessary staff to provide care, particularly, I'll give you an example right now in Lake Charles. Obviously, this is a big issue, but also I could say Baton Rouge. So anyway, I guess that would be bullet point number 4 really rings true to me and to many people I talk to.
Okay, thank you, sir. Jill, you have the floor.
All right. I was a little confused by Courtney's comment like, so are we picking one from these 6
Yes.
targeted
Yes.
to go to all 3 of our goals?
No, I believe we would be taking one of these 6 areas and applying it to one of our goals in particular.
But I thought we had to have targeted disparities for all 3 goals, and it had to be the same targeted disparity.
Courtney, can you help shed some light on this?
Yes, that is incorrect information. We only have to have one targeted disparity for either a goal or one objective. So in our current 5-year plan, we have a targeted disparity of individuals in underserved geographic areas assigned to one of our employment objectives. So we need to do something similar for the next 5-year plan. We need to pick one of these 6 targeted disparity areas and assign it to one objective in just one of the 3 goals.
Okay, so it's not even for a goal, it's for an objective.
You can select it for a goal, but if you select it for a goal, it has to be applied to all of the objectives within that goal.
Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Nicole, you have the floor.
Yeah, I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry.
Okay, since it is like that, I have a question, probably for Mr. Matthew, because he did shed some light on that since he does work in that field. With disadvantaged people living in poverty and individuals in underserved geographical areas, rural areas and urban areas, does that cross? Because it would seem like to me that it kind of crosses disadvantaged people and individuals living in underserved geographical ones. Do those kind of cross lines or whatever?
This is Matt. I would say yes. Looking at these, they all sort of intertwine and they do cross. I mean, individuals that are receiving home and community-based services through the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities or on Medicaid, which is
poverty.
These individuals can't make over $679 a month, which would put them in almost in a poverty situation. So in short, your answer is yes. All of these are really important. Unfortunately, I just had to pick one, and that was one that really kind of hit me.
Right. So yeah, that's what I'm asking. Okay. So now, being that it does intertwine with each other, which one would get the most people in your expertise? Which area would get the most people? Because that's kind of like, to me, the goal. Which area would give us the most people so that we can have some accurate data to present to them in this 5-year tenure?
Are you asking me or are you asking
Yeah,
him?
I'm asking Mr. Matthew because, I mean, he has some insight in it since he's already worked in that, field, and they've already had that. So I'm asking, him or anybody else that can shed some light upon, which area which area will we reach the most from?
Yeah, Nicole, I think it's a very good question. And being the short answer, I like the word underserved, because to me, that really is a broad term. And we're talking about people that are underserved. And so it does seem like a broad term that we could capture a lot of the issues. I mean, if you're living in an underserved geographic area, more than likely you're going, as you just said, you're going to also be disadvantaged through poverty. Unfortunately, the minority issues may pop up. And that's just my opinion. Of course, I'd like to listen to other folks on that one too.
Okay, yeah, I want to listen to other folks on that one too, because like I voted for the education one, but now I know that we had to vote for the different, targeted areas. So since we have those ones, if anybody else has some insight, which one we could give, because some of these categories kind of intertwine with each other. So if we can get one that kind of gets like almost all of them and just like, that would serve us the best, to get the most people, I think that's the category that will logically make sense for us to choose, as a whole, because we're reaching more people.
Understood. Thank you for that. Jill, you have
And one more question. Hold on, Jill. One more question.
Okay.
What data are we using to actually track like what systems are we using to actually track this data in regards to, what progress is being made and, what we can tangibly see being done?
Courtney can best answer that question. Courtney,
Okay.
would you care to answer that?
Correct, thank you. So if we have contractual activities that are assigned to that objective, we would make sure to include performance indicators from the contractors that will address the specific targeted disparity so that we can collect that data, and we will have to report that data annually to the federal government in our annual reports. If it is just an advocacy activity, then we would have to collect data beforehand on statistics from Louisiana. And then once new policies or procedures are implemented, we would then have to collect another sampling of data to see if there's been any effective change. Does that happen to answer the question?
Okay, yeah. So if it's a contract that we're using a contractor with, they're going to supply us with the data based off of what they gather from their findings. And then if it's advocacy, it's going to be collected before, and we're going to kind of base what happened from this year to that year in regards to the data and how it's being collected, correct?
Correct, you got it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to know how the data was being collected, because how like to just tangibly see change is very hard in regards to all of this stuff, because you really have to have some kind of tracking system of how things are really going. But thank you, Courtney. I appreciate you elaborating that for us.
Okay, and Jill, you have the floor now.
It's so hard to choose.
It is.
Just one, because these are all so great.
I absolutely agree with you. It's very difficult to do.
My response is probably gonna confuse y'all because it's confusing to me, but I like people within the population, other groups within the population of people with DD. At first, I liked that because it was broad in that one thing seemed to include everything else. But I'm almost thinking it might be a little too broad, but also, and then my second thought was the last one, people who require technology to participate and contribute to community life, because anything with assist, it doesn't say the word assistive, but anything with assistive technology, I've always been a big proponent for. So those are that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments, or suggestions?
Tamisha Saunier, Hyacinth McKee, and Lillian Dejon all have their hands raised.
I think Hyacinth is bringing up the point that we are laboring on this one quite a bit and want to remember our time constraints for 3 minutes per question. So Hyacinth, is that what you wanted to address?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Lillian, you have the floor.
Okay, I know I'm a little bit late. My brain's running a bit slower today, so I apologize. But I think prioritizing racial and ethnic minority backgrounds is super duper important, considering that our last public input survey, we had very, very little input from racial minorities, and also considering all the trouble we've had having adequate representation on our own council membership. So I think prioritizing that would be really great.
Excellent point. Thank you. Hannah, who else did we have in the box?
I think that's a great point. As always, good point, Lillian.
Thank
Tamisha
you.
Saunier.
Miss Sonia, you have the floor.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm gonna be real quick. Needed some clarity. When looking at the disadvantaged people and those living in poverty, are we targeting primarily those living in poverty or just disadvantaged people altogether? When we look at it, go
It
ahead.
would be all together. That's an example of those living in poverty, because of course we have an issue where poverty is pervasive in the DD community for various reasons.
The reason I asked is because I'm gonna be real quick with my my 2 cents. When I look at the word disadvantage and what it embodies, and looking at all the areas of disparities, people who are racial and ethnically of minority backgrounds are disadvantaged people. People who have English as a second language are disadvantaged. All of these groups fit under disadvantaged people as a whole.
Right.
So real quick, like someone else mentioned earlier, my vote is choosing, number 2 with the disadvantaged people, being that we can target a bigger group as a whole, because it really, all of these other areas kind of fit under that. The underserved geographic locations, if you think about it, they are living in poverty as well. A lot of people who require assistive technology also are disadvantaged. So I think that, that one in itself would embody all of those. And if we could track those separate indicators, like she said, I think we would be meeting the standard. That's just my input. Thank you.
All right. So, Phil, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Tamisha, you once again, just like you did in our committee meeting yesterday, said what I was trying to say earlier very much more succinctly. And I do think that if you think about poverty, we unfortunately know that people from racial and ethnic backgrounds in our state and our country are much more likely to be poor. We know that people who have developmental and other disabilities are more likely to be poor. We know that people who do not speak English as their primary language in our country and our state are likely to be poor. So I think you are absolutely right. It's a binding thing that really doesn't divide us into little camps of this and that. It's poverty is a disability. Amen. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And so do we have consensus that disadvantaged people would be our targeted point that we want to use? And now if we can agree to that, then we would need to choose what objective we would target. Do we agree that, are we ready for a vote for disadvantaged people to be our targeted area?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a yes coming from me.
Do I have a motion to recommend the number 2, the disadvantaged people with those living in poverty, for that to be the targeted disparity area we use?
I would like to make a motion that number 2, disadvantaged people, those living in poverty, be the targeted disparity for our 5-year plan.
Thank
Randall
you.
Rashard Bristol, I second.
Okay, and I'm sorry, could you repeat that one more time, the second?
Rashard Bristol, I second.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Rashad. So we have a motion on the floor from our Vice Chair, Ms. Hyacinth McKee, for disadvantaged people living in poverty. And we have a second from Mr. Rashad Bristow. So now you have the motion on the floor for a vote, and I want to call for a roll call vote. Hannah, do you have a list of us?
Yes, you do have a hand raised and a comment. Would you like those now or later?
Are they pertinent to the motion on the floor?
Ms. Karanda's comment is, I'm not sure about the hand raised, what they're asking.
Okay. You can read Karanda's comment. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Karanda says, choosing disadvantaged people will eliminate a large number of individuals in the DD/ID community.
Thank you for that point, Ms. Karanda. Whose hand is raised?
Ms. Kathy Dwyer.
Yes, Ms. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members. I could agree with disadvantaged people, those living in poverty, and I was going to go more specifically to what the goal or objective could be, would be the health objective of GOLD. I know particularly adults with developmental disabilities, disadvantaged, living in poverty, are the ones who are typically in poverty because they are limited resources, as opposed to children with developmental disabilities that typically have their family members to help support them. Additionally, with the adults, as they transition to adulthood services, we are finding, and I have experienced personally with my daughter for the last 20-something years since she became an adult, that it's hard to find physicians and medical services for adults with developmental disabilities that are affordable, that understand the background. Particularly, I'm going to kind of focus in more on something I've been working on personally with the state advisory committee that I'm on. We formed a task force for adults with developmental disabilities who need anesthesia for dental services. Dental is one of the health services is not available to adults with developmental disabilities, not like they are for children. Children have comprehensive dental services under Medicaid. Adults do not. Basically, they either get their teeth pulled and a set of dentures or and cleaning, and that's practically it. So we've been working on trying to get dental services for adults with developmental disabilities, particularly those who need anesthesia, because it costs anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 or $5,000 just for regular dental services that adults on limited income cannot afford. And dental health and other health services are critical for a person or an adult to participate in the community. Thank you.
Great points, Ms. Kathy. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. So I would like to entertain the motion, the vote on the motion. And the motion is for our disparity number 2, the disadvantaged people and those living in poverty, to be our targeted disparity. And so, Hannah, can you begin calling roll for that vote, please?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have a question before we vote, because I feel it's important. I'd like to hear a little bit more why, because I'm seeing some statements in the chat for Ms. Corley to elaborate on how she believes that disadvantaged people will exclude a large number of individuals. And I think Mr. Anthony is saying something about no access to resources. So I just because that one covered all of those demographics, I want to understand before we vote, which I think is important. Everybody understands, everyone stands before they make a vote on it. Not to elaborate too much, but to understand how are we leaving out large numbers if that embodies all the groups. So if y'all don't mind if I can get a little more insight on it, why they feel that way, or if they can put it at least in the chat, you know.
Well, let's let Mr. Anthony, you have the floor. Mr. Luxack.
Excuse me, Randall. Can I
Hold on.
see the
Yes,
page
Rosalind.
again, please? May I
Pardon?
see that page again? Because I was
We're going to put it back up on
writing.
the screen in just a second. Before we vote, we're going to put it back up on the screen.
Because I was writing it down, and
Okay.
I wanted to see my choices.
Sure. Yeah, we'll put it back on the screen in just a minute. Mr. Luxack, you have the floor, sir. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
It's Luzak. Can you hear me okay today?
I apologize. Yes, I can, Mr. Luzak.
That's fantastic, very much. My concern with the movement of the current motion towards number 2 in the targeted population is that while it may affect on the books the most individual numbers, it completely ignores in our state the huge actual disparity of access to resources, services, work, employment, aids like PCS services that are just not available for individuals with developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities that live in the rural or geographically disadvantaged, I believe is the federal word in this setting, areas. And if we focus on poverty, we will end up putting our resources into the areas that already have access to resources. And when we're looking at specific disparities, I think it's also easiest when we're doing very poorly, very poorly in one measure. If we look at that measure, if you guys want to make an improvement, you're going to make an improvement there if you actually do something to improve access in these rural communities. Like Mr. Phil was talking earlier about making improvements. Like, we can make real improvements by focusing within the context of these 3 goals, within the objectives, you focus on the rural communities, and you would see they're the ones who need your help most, because there's people in Baton Rouge, there's people in where there's populations that are dense with disparities of poverty. They have their services available that you can continue to work with, but you have to grow the network of care in the rural communities. And that goes beyond just care. That's also, we don't have internet. There's people in Louisiana that don't have access to Zoom to participate in this meeting. Still, these are very serious issues, and I'm concerned that addressing number 2 will only further that gap that exists. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anthony. And I want to just piggyback off of that again. That's why I asked for clarity from Mr. Chairman about whether or not that disadvantaged people statement was regarding just living in poverty. I agree wholeheartedly with what you said, and I do belong, just to let you know, to the rural community. I have a majority of that issue myself. So I completely understand what you're saying, but I also agree that I consider myself at a disadvantage. Poverty or not, I believe, and because it's not worded in that sense, it just gives a quotation. The word disadvantaged people embodies racial, rural, geographic, those without technology. And so we're not looking, and I can't speak for the whole council, but I can speak for the position, I believe, of what we're trying to say. We're not looking at just numbers. We're looking at trying to cover all of these disparities, well, you know, with the goals and ideas in mind. That way no one is left out. And we're working towards everyone moving and having something worked on. And so I appreciate, you know, what you're saying, and it's very, very true, because access to care and having a seat at the table is a big, big part of those areas. But I do think disadvantage, the disadvantage area crosses over into all of these disparities. So I thank you for your input, but that's what I wanted to make sure everyone has a voice at the table before we vote. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think you're muted.
Yeah, he is.
My apologies. Are we ready for a vote? Because we're running against time here for the 3-minute rule. And so are we comfortable and ready for a vote on the motion that's on the floor?
Yeah, I do, but I was going to agree with somebody on it, and that because for me, I really want to speak for the group home that I am in, because for all of us, even for the group home, and I do agree, but how can we all come together and to choose for what's on the board?
That's what we're trying to do with this motion. And then we have to decide is if we want this disadvantaged people to be our focus for our targeted disparity. And then
Does that consider
next we would
for
need
the
to choose the
community?
objective. But
Even for a community that we even live in?
Right.
Hold up.
I'm not sure I heard your whole question or statement there, Rosalind.
Hold up. I just lost. Hold up.
Okay.
Right. No, my whole screen just went off. Anyway, like I'm saying, would it even work even for the group home that I am in?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to find
We
out.
believe it would. Yes.
Oh, okay then. That's what I wanted to find out. Thank you on that.
Yes. Okay. So are we ready to, for the question? Are we ready for the vote?
Then I am ready to vote.
Thank you. Hannah, could you please call the roll?
Actually, I'll call roll while Hannah
Okay,
takes the tallies.
Yeah.
And just to remind you, I'll just be calling on members who have been appointed to the council. And everyone, please make sure your screens are showing. Your video has been shared. Okay.
Oh, make sure we understand the yes and the no and what it's for, please.
Right. Thank you for that, Mary. If you vote yes, then you'll be choosing the second option of disadvantaged people for our targeted disparity area for the 5-year plan. If you vote no, then you would not be choosing that option for the targeted disparity for our 5-year plan. So yes, if you're for the disadvantaged people being our targeted disparity, and no if you are not for that to be our targeted
Is there
disparity.
for voting that you are missing?
I'm sorry, Rosalind. Could you
Is
repeat
there
that?
another one? It feels like there is something else to the voting.
No, it's the one motion. It's whether or not we want targeted disparity.
What
to
I
be-
mean is, what happens if you don't choose that?
If you vote no, then if enough people voted no, then we would go back to looking at the list and see which one we could get a consensus to be our targeted disparity.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's essentially saying do you want this to be our targeted disparity? Yes, if you do. No, if you don't.
Oh, okay. then.
Okay.
So
So
I'll begin the vote.
thank you.
Miss Nicole Banks.
Yes.
Miss Banks, yes. Dr. Patty Baravecchio.
Yes.
Dr. Baravecchio, yes. Miss Kim Bazil.
Yes.
Miss Bazil, yes. Miss Melissa Bayham.
Yes.
Miss Bayham, yes. Mr. Michael Billings. Mr. Billings.
Yes.
Mr. Billings, yes. Mr. Rashad Bristow.
Yes.
Mr. Bristow, yes. Miss Carmen Centenar.
Yes.
Miss Centenar, yes. Miss Lillian Dejan.
Yes.
Miss Dejan, yes. Miss Jill Eagley. Have we lost Miss Eagley? Miss Michelle Guillory.
Yes.
Miss Guillory, yes. Miss Julie Foster Hagan. I believe we have lost Miss Foster Hagan. Miss Jill Hayno.
Yes.
Miss Hayno, yes. Miss Rosalind Heimel.
Yes.
Miss Heimel, yes. Mr. Mitch Iddens.
No. Not emo time out.
Mr. Iddens, no.
Correct.
Miss Jen Katzman. Don't believe she's on with us. Dr. Hyacinth McKee.
Yes.
Dr. McKee, yes. Mr. Stephen Wynn.
No.
Mr. Wynn, no. Miss Bambi Polizzola.
Yes.
Miss Polizzola, yes. Mr. Matthew Rivera.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera, yes. Miss Tamisha Saunier.
Yes.
Miss Saunier, yes. Miss Mary Tarver.
Yes.
Miss Tarver, yes. Dr. Phil Wilson.
Yes.
Dr. Wilson, yes.
17 yeses and 2 nos.
Yeah. Stephen want to be a party pooper.
So the motion is passed. So now, correct me if I'm wrong, Courtney, but now we would need to choose the objective we want to target, right?
Correct.
Could you put our list back up, please?
You about to knock me out. You knocked me.
What are we choosing now?
Now we would choose the objective that we want to target. Of these objectives you have listed, and there are many.
Y'all had to meet again to determine the objectives.
Well, we do as far as once we set the targeted. This is just to set the targeted disparity, though, and so we've already agreed what our targeted disparity will be, and that's targeting disadvantaged people. And so now, from these objectives that are the bullet points that we've already set, we need to choose the area of emphasis that we want to target for disadvantaged people. And Ms. Kathy Dwyer indicated that she thought health would be a good area. And so that's just one example of what we're now looking at, is which of these objectives we have listed, and there are many within our goals. Which one do we feel we should add to the targeted disparity? Now that we know disadvantaged people is who we are targeting, what area, what objective do we want to target?
Okay, I'm catching what you're throwing down.
Okay.
I'm kind of keeping notes. That's why I'm trying to do all of this so I won't be confused.
My camera's off.
We want to make sure that we give this to an objective that the committee won't later withdraw, in that it's a objective that we all agree to, that's part of the plan, that we all agree is vital and would need targeting. So bearing that in mind, I'm open to suggestions of how y'all feel about what our objective should be.
Is there a way that we can have access to this document so that we can see all three?
It's on.
Is it on the website or something?
It's on the website.
Yes, I believe it is. Is it not, Courtney?
It is. It's part of the meeting summary for the 5-year planning committee meeting.
Okay.
Or you can call Courtney and Bucker 2 minutes after she makes it, like I do.
Can I make a suggestion? Do we agree to table this until after lunch? Because we have hit the lunch hour. It's now 12:02.
Yeah.
Would the
Yeah.
council be agreeable to take?
I'm hungry here.
Yes.
Give everyone an
Thank
opportunity to
you, Steve,
also
for
review.
agreeing with me on that. You little
Okay,
cunt.
Rosalind, thank you. That would give everyone an opportunity to review some of this as well. So if we could, let's postpone this until after we have had our lunch break. Is there any
Hey, how
objection
long
to
is our lunch
postponing?
break?
Okay, is there any objection to postponing this vote until after lunch? As we have now hit the lunch hour, it's 12:03. Hearing no objection, we will return at 1 p.m. and we will pick up the discussion on the vote for the targeted disparity. So we are now entering recess for our lunch period.